Fear the Walking Dead Season 6 is what brought many Fear fans back to the show after the pretty shaky Season 5. Season 6 had great villains, no really dumb kids, and just all around a good plot that moved the story forward constantly, and you never felt like you were slowing down and it was always moving. You felt constantly entertained. But by the Season 6 finale, we had a character slash villain named Teddy that left our world in an absolute nuclear wasteland and holocaust after he launched a bunch of nukes into Texas and everything before Morgan, Strand, and Grace and all the other characters could stop the nukes, and the nukes essentially hit the ground and turned the entire place into a toxic wasteland full of radiation and absolute horror. And now we're at Season 7 where we get to see how our characters live upon this wasteland. And my god, Season 7, Episode 1, 110% kicked this and hit it out of the park. So basically in the aftermath of Teddy's nuclear holocaust and now left in the wasteland, all of our characters are 110% split up. We have Morgan and Grace chilling inside the submarine and everything, obviously trying to stay away from all radiation. We have Strand, who has apparently started his entire new community and everything, in his own little army and everything, in his own community that's fully structured, which I was very surprised to see. People like Al, Daniel, and a bunch of other people were taken by the CRM. Dwight and Sherry were left down in a cellar and everything to hide away from the nuclear blast. So basically, all of our characters are split up after Teddy's nuke. Now getting into this episode and everything and more deep into it, this season so far has an absolutely terrifying look to it and a really good aesthetic, which I know is a word that's very overused for, like, you know, everything in the world. But the difference between the oranges of the nuclear wasteland and kind of the nice grays and blues, and I'm not talking about the shitty grays of Fear the Walking Dead Season 5, that shit was horrible, let's keep that in the past. But it's kind of this nice, like, you know, dark grayish and blue, like, aesthetic and everything to, like, differ it from the orange wasteland, and I really like that. And it makes each section have their own terrifying bits, and especially when, like, you know, obviously after the wasteland or everything, and after the nuclear blast, it's left a place covered in smoke and fire, which adds to its absolutely terrifying look, which was what I loved most about this episode. It was absolutely terrifying with amazing set design, with the smoke, the burnt out trees, like, you know, the like horrid ground that's just caved in by all the nuclear decay and everything, and it just being radiated away. Just the darkness, the smoke, the lack of visibility really added to how terrifying this episode could have been, or not even could have been. It was definitely, because this episode has tons of horror aspects and everything. Like I said, the look and the aesthetic of, like, you know, the darkness and having very low visibility. And I did mention this in a bunch of my Fear the Walking Dead videos leading up to Season 7 and its premiere, but basically how the world would be affected and everything by the nuclear blast. Like I said, in Episode 1, they already showed off, like, you know, a ton of things, such as, like, you know, the ground being pounded in by the nuclear decay, constant smoke being around from fires, and just the radiation in general. But in this episode, we did get to see a bunch of things and how, like, you know, the environment is affected by, like, you know, the nuclear waste. During the episode when Strand, Will, and a bunch of his men went on a mission looking for Alicia, when it started raining, Strand and a bunch of other people, including Will, basically said, like, you know, put up your hoods and all, because apparently now we have nuclear rain or radiated rain to, like, you know, worry about, which is an insane, like, you know, concept to think about and everything, and something that The Walking Dead's never explored ever. Also during the episode, we did get to see when the character Will was hunting for, like, you know, food and everything, when he was very desperate. We basically got to see a lake where a bunch of fish were rising up out of it and everything. It was just a complete moldy green lake and everything, and that shows, like, you know, how the world is affected after the nuclear blast and the radiation, which was really cool in my opinion. The horses were never really affected in this episode, which I swear to god The Walking Dead is some form fetish with horses. The cinematography in this episode was really good, like absolutely fantastic, of how it, like, you know, really showed the creepiness and how the world is now after, like, you know, the nuclear blast. There were some really good shots in this episode that I personally really did like, especially stuff like, you know, showing off the world, like I said, and everything, and just how, like, you know, scary everything can be. The lighting of this episode was really good. It never felt like overlit or, like, you know, too lit up and everything. Like I said, the massive lack of visibility and how much our characters are at risk of being bit by walkers and everything, since they can't see jack shit, is really good in my opinion, and just, like I said, really plays into the horror aspects of the episode. Like I mentioned earlier, and I think set design was really good, especially the nuclear wasteland, of how everything just looks absolutely demolished, destroyed. Like I said, the aesthetic of, like, you know, the orange landscape and everything, showing, like, you know, radiation, it's not a safe zone, and, like, lots of smoke. Moving towards kind of grayish and, like, you know, bluish area of, like, you know, the non-infected infected and everything. The new walkers were absolutely terrifying. Well, no, there wasn't many, like, you know, changes and everything in how the walkers looked. Actually, I do take that back. There were some changes to how they looked and everything, and just some really fucked up and really just gruesome and awesome walkers. I think there was even a nude walker while, like, you know, during the opening of the episode when Will was walking around. I could swear there was a nude walker. I was a bit far away from my TV, but I could swear there was one, which The Walking Dead doesn't have much, which if it is, and I'll have to go back and rewatch it, but if it was and anything, that was really funny. But the walkers seem to be very different, as if they're decaying almost because of the nuclear blast, because there's this one walker that was acting very, very weird and even looked like it was decaying and desperate for food. Maybe as if it was even starving and everything, trying to get to this, like, I think, rat over the sign or anything during Will's opening of the episode. And speaking of the episode opening, I thought this episode opening was absolutely fantastic. It basically threw us into a new character and everything while basically showing us how the new landscape is after the nuclear blast. Basically showing how, like, you know, the people that are not a part of our group are affected by this blast and everything, and basically their journey of trying to find food in the new, like, you know, Wasteland and everything, how that's not successful. I also want to talk about the new enemies of this, like, you know, season so far. I think Will disclosed one of the groups as the Stalkers or something, of people that, like, you know, scalp walkers and complete skin walkers, like, you know, I guess I can't say alive since they're dead, but they pretty much skin walkers and everything. They stalk people, which I'm assuming why Will called them the Stalkers. And they did make, like, you know, really big appearances of this episode by, like, you know, actually shooting and, like, you know, warring off with, like, you know, Strand and his group, apparently taking them all out and everything while they were under that bridge and everything, trying to hide away from, like, you know, the nuclear rain. And this group seems, like, terrifying so far, and they, like, actually seem really cool, especially since they're wearing all that, like, you know, nuclear protection armor. And apparently there was another group that, like, you know, Will did say was not the Stalkers that, like, you know, attacked Alicia's, like, you know, bunker, which we'll get to her in a little bit later and everything. But I'm assuming there's two different enemies, or three if you do count Strand or anything, which I'll get to yet again later. But the enemies so far this season seem to be really cool, and, like, they're gonna, like, you know, knock out the stakes of this, like, you know, this season so far and get it really going quick. The characters in this episode, the two standouts being people like Strand and Will, and, like, that other guy that Strand found inside the hotel. I thought all three of those characters were very entertaining, especially Will and everything, how he is basically trying to, like, you know, morally guide Strand throughout the episode by, like, you know, giving him moral hints that basically, like, you know, Alicia wants you to find her and everything, and just all of that. And also how Strand has changed so much throughout this, like, you know, season already and everything. Like, last season he was all with our group and everything, trying to defeat, like, you know, Virginia and everything. Then he started to split off a little bit. Then in season 6, or, you know, in the end of season 6 into season 7, he completely went rogue, started his own community and everything and all of that. And now he's kind of this snarky, sarcastic, princess type, like, you know, commander of this new community and everything. He's a fully 100% leader. He seems more like a, probably, like, the best way to see someone describe him now is like kind of a Negan and Governor combined, which I do really agree with, since he kind of has the joking charisma of Negan and everything, and kind of the very seriousness, psychotic side of, like, you know, the Governor. But I did really enjoy Strand and Will throughout this episode, and especially seeing how much Strand has changed in the character Will. Now, the episode plot is essentially, like, you know, like, Will's out in the, like, you know, the wilderness and everything. He's, like, you know, hanging on by strings, and then basically Strand takes him in and everything. But just as Strand is about to banish, like, you know, Will for not sharing his, like, ideologies and everything, basically he holds up a necklace. Will holds up a necklace, and basically that was Alicia's, that Strand gave to Alicia. And basically Strand, like, you know, tells Will to take him to where he found it so he can find Alicia. Obviously the Stalkers get to them before, like, you know, Strand and Will can and everything, and basically start a firefight and all of that really cool shit. And basically, like, you know, towards the end of the episode and everything, basically Strand and Will come together and everything after, like, you know, Strand tries to kill Will like 5 times, and they end up fighting it through, like, you know, some walkers in a very scary and awesome looking setting, which was really, really cool in my opinion. I love that fight scene with them and everything, of how, like, you know, they had, you know, conflicts with each other, and then they eventually, like, you know, fought the walkers and everything in a really terrifying set and area. And basically by the end of the episode and everything, Strand and, like, you know, him bring back this, like, you know, light and everything to apparently, like, you know, draw Alicia in. But then Strand, like, you know, pretty much tells Will and everything, yeah, you were wrong this entire time, I never agreed with you and everything, basically fuck you. And then when Will tries to change his opinion the one last time, Strand fucking throws him over, like, you know, the, like, the guardrails, over the, like, you know, the roof of the hotel. And oh my god, that death and how Strand acted during that was fucking brutal and awesome. Like I said, a total mix of the governor and Negan with the joking personality and everything, and kind of like, the princess leader in charge and everything, then the psychotic side of the governor. Now I want to talk a bit about Alicia and everything, and her whole bunker situation, how she is so far playing into season 7 of Fear the Walking Dead. So basically in this season so far and everything, the character Will did know Alicia and everything, and like, he was a part of the bunker community and everything with her, and apparently there's a bunch of other people in the bunker, but apparently Will ended up getting banished by Alicia and everything and told to leave, like, the bunker and everything and go out somewhere else. And then later on the episode, when like, Strand and Will find and go through the bunker and everything, we do find out that it was like, invaded by apparently not the Stalkers, although I do think it was a Stalker, since I don't want them to have too many villains in the season and make it like really confusing and everything. But they eventually find like, the bunker all raided, shot up and everything, and like, all that type of shit. They basically find like, paintings on the wall of Alicia, and then they basically find like a letter on the floor basically saying Pedro, and like, all this, I think it's Pedro and everything, the letter that they found. And it's basically said that Alicia is like, escaped from the bunker. She had a bunch of other people down there with her that didn't make it. And now basically Alicia is out of the bunker and out in the wild, and we have no clue where she is at the moment and everything. And we also did find out that Will was in love with Alicia and everything, which was a very interesting thing, which obviously you won't be able to fulfill that love, since like, he's now brain splattered on the bottom of the fucking hotel parking lot, all thanks to like, our buddy Strand. And that's one last thing I want, like, one of the few last points I want to go over in this like, video is basically Strand as the new villain. My god, dude, Colman Domingo kicks ass in this episode, man. He really gives off a great performance of like, just like going from this like, princess, prissy person in charge with like, a sailor cap and his sailor outfit and everything, commander-in-chief of this like, new community, which holy shit, man, this community looks fucking way more advanced. It has so many more people than I thought like, Strand could ever truly build. Like I thought the season was gonna start off with like, them trying to regain some people and everything and get people into the community, but dude, we go flat out into finding out that the community has like, a yoga center and everything, a golf course, a whole entire art gallery, a food court, all of this shit. And my god, that was so cool. But going back into Strand's like, new villain persona and everything, Colman Domingo kicked ass in this episode with basically showing like, yet again Strand's like, that commander-in-chief, and him like basically owning the community, like I said, being a Negan and a governor to the community. But he does go through an interesting arc in this episode where he kind of realizes some things, but obviously later down the line in the episode, we realize he did not learn jack shit. And when he eventually goes mad in the end of the episode, that was so fucking cool and everything, especially with Colman Domingo like going basically like, she won't have anything to do with me. No, she won't and everything, because by the end of this, she won't be able to even get near me, because basically Strand is surrounding his entire community with walkers, which is, I don't know, it seems like a good strategy to keep people out and everything, but if you want to get out, it's not too good of a strategy. But basically, there were a lot of really good performances in the episode. Like I said, Colman Domingo and the actor who played Will basically, like in my opinion, kicked ass, and I really liked them throughout the episode, and they just did really good, especially in emotional moments and like, crazy psychotic moments. And like I said, Colman Domingo with his absolutely psychotic performance, and like, Prissy and like, commander-in-chief performance, I just really liked and can't get over. And there was just some really interesting aspects of the episode. Like I said, the new villain, the Stalkers, and obviously the new villain, like, Victor Strand, kind of the new aspects of the new Wasteland with like, walkers possibly decaying and going hungry, like fish turning up and all animals being affected by like, the nuclear wasteland. There was this one really weird part of the episode when like, Will was being brought into Strand's community. He was basically washed down, being sprayed by like 70 people in hazmat suits and everything, basically obviously disinfect him. And I really did like Strand and like, Will's emotional moments during the episode, and like, the funny moments and the epic moments and the terrifying moments of them fighting through like, the walkers and everything and all of that, fighting off the Stalkers and finding Alicia's bunker completely cleared out and everything, and learning some new information about her and everything, how she's officially free now. Although I don't feel she'll like, reappear back in the series until like maybe the mid-season finale, in my opinion, maybe earlier, but I do feel like they'll wait all the way till then, in my opinion. But besides that, there was a lot of also really funny points in this episode, especially when like, Strand and Will are first sitting down, like, basically like, questioning each other and basically, having a drink, and like, Will eating for the first time forever. Also, this very interesting aspect of the wall, their kind of version, Strand's like, version of the Wall of the Lost from the Commonwealth, basically taking pictures of walkers and everything to basically help people find closure with like, their dead like, you know, relatives, friends, or like, you know, people that they know, acquaintances, which is a very interesting aspect to reintroduce and everything, and maybe will lead to some clues of like, you know, other characters that we like, you know, might think are dead and everything reappearing in season 7. Maybe Madison, I don't know, maybe, hopefully. But that was my kind of my review and everything for season 7, episode 1 of Fear the Walking Dead. This episode was absolutely fantastic and a great way to kick off season 7 of Fear the Walking Dead. Make sure to comment down below your thoughts of this episode. I think what was your favorite parts, what was your least favorite parts, and I think I can't even honestly think of a part of this episode that I didn't like. Maybe I need a little bit more time to think about it, but this is basically my first impressions and what I truly do think about the episode and everything. And based on the trailer for season 7, episode 2 and everything, I can't wait to see how this season progresses so far and seeing more of our characters and everything and how the environments are affected, new villains like the Stalkers and Victor Strand and how it interacts with other people. And just all around, I'm really excited for the ride that we're going into for season 7 or anything. And make sure to comment down below if you guys are also excited, because I don't know how you can't be. If you do like Fear the Walking Dead and you like season 6, you're definitely gonna love season 7 in my opinion. But like I said, that's my review for Fear the Walking Dead season 7 episode 1. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below, your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more latest in the Walking Dead universe, such as more reviews, breakdowns, explaining videos, theory videos, and more stuff like this. And yeah, see you guys later, my amigos, and peace out.